Tribunal judgment with Niger war, Najatu discloses. Ijeoma Egwuatu discloses Tinubu lacks constitutional authority. Nigeria Army speaks on partnering Asari Dokubo's security outfit. Details now. World News begins with 5 justices as they have heard the election petitions filed by the candidates of the People's Democratic Party, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, and the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, at the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal challenging the victory of President Bola Tinubu in the February 25 presidential election. They are prepared to deliver their ruling on the matter. Now, Nigerians at home and in the diaspora are filled with great expectations that the judges will rule based on the facts and figures presented before them and not based on technicalities or any other consideration. You do recall that the Independent National Electoral Commission had on March 1, 4 days after the presidential election held on February 25, announced Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the All Progressives Congress as the winner of the election and president-elect. As the 5 justices that heard the candidates of the People's Democratic Party, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, and the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, and the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal challenging the victory of President Bola Tinubu in the February 25 presidential elections, they prepare to deliver their ruling on the matter. Nigerians at home and in the diaspora are filled with great expectations that the judges would rule based on the facts and figures presented before them and not based on technicalities or any other consideration. You do recall that the Independent National Electoral Commission had on March 1, 4 days after the presidential election held on February 25, announced Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the All Progressives Congress as the winner of the election and president-elect. The INEC chairman stressed that by that score, Tinubu had met the first constitutional requirement of garnering the highest votes amongst all the candidates. He also said he scored over 25% of the votes cast in 30 states, which are more than the 24 states that are constitutionally required. With this declaration, many Nigerians felt that INEC had neglected a very important constitutional requirement, which states that a candidate must score 25% of the votes cast in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, to be declared president of Nigeria. From the INEC records, only the Labour Party candidate who came third met that requirement. Tinubu and Atiku did not. But INEC, in its own wisdom, did not consider that as enough reason to deny Tinubu the victory, having scored the highest number of votes cast in the election and having scored 25% in more than 24 states. To talk a little bit more about this, I have on the telephone Barrister Ijeoma Egwuatu. Now, Barrister Ijeoma Egwuatu is not just a legal practitioner, he is a political enthusiast, a vocalist actually, and a civil advocate. Barrister, good afternoon and welcome to VOP 90.3 FM's World News.
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. Now, I want to start with this question first before I go on your declaration via the Daily Post. So, Nigerians are expectantly waiting on the tribunal's judgment, on how the on the actual winner of February 25 elections. However, based on the fact that only the Labour Party came third, and that they met the requirement of having 25% votes, in Abuja, based on some of the rights, as per when it comes to constitution and who legally won. Well, INEC declared the president as the winner because he scored 25% in about 30 states. Now, do you think that that is already enough, or does that disqualify anything per se, if at all the tribunal is meant to give its statement? I just need your reaction on that.
Well, the issues have been presented before the Court of Appeal. Arguments have been canvassed. It is now left for the Presidential Election Petitions Court or Tribunal to determine whether there is merit to the argument that 25% of total votes cast in the FCT is itself. So we just have to wait for this Not because it's going to me. How the judicial. What I know is that there are two arguments. One argument is that yes, government.
I can
Argument
hear you,
is that we
Barrister.
have to
Okay.
as a state,
Okay.
as a state, as a state. So it's not left for farming this position is correct. So what is okay is that the matter will have to determine that it's income. Is that way the government
Barrister, hello? Can you hear me?
yes,
You seem not to be very clear or very audible. Are you using an earpiece or because you sound a little bit muffled? Hello? Okay, well, we'll try to re-establish connection with Barrister Inibehe Effiong because there's a particular article that was released recently where he made a statement, and I actually need him to extemporate, talk more on that particular development as is required or as I announced earlier. He needs to actually give the explanation better on the statement that was made recently via a particular online newspaper. Now, I'm going to start with this, whereby a former director, civil society of the All Progressives Congress, the Presidential Campaign Council, Hajia Najatu Mohammed, she has claimed that Bola Ahmed Tinubu is aware that he is not eligible to contest for any rerun election. Now, she actually made that interview recently with a particular newspaper too. Najatu said Tinubu is trying to play politics with the crisis in Niger by calling for war. Now, according to her, why should Tinubu be in a hurry to declare war in Nigeria? And she said Tinubu is aware that he is not eligible to contest. The tribunal judges know this. APC as a political party also knows this. Speaking further, she said Tinubu should decide to make use, or he may decide to make use of the war to prolong his stay in power. And she made a statement again that if Nigeria is at war, Tinubu can declare a state of emergency or a martial law that will allow him to remain in power indefinitely, putting aside any tribunal or judicial process challenging his eligibility or even contest the election. Now, I have via the telephone Mr. Elvis Elimihele. He is a political enthusiast as well, a social affairs commentator, and he has also been a journalist for over 2 decades. So I'm going to start off first of all with Mr. Elvis, and then I'll go back to Barrister Inibehe Effiong. Mr. Elvis, good afternoon and welcome to VOP World News.
Good afternoon, Esther. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Thank you for joining me. You heard what Najatu actually said right now. She made a statement which a couple of persons have been talking about publicly in some public forums. There have been several speculations. There have been several statements on the Niger situation, the Niger coup. You do know that the ECOWAS has talked about a military invasion. They have declared their force to stay at the Niger border. Now, Najatu is saying that Tinubu has no right to actually declare war, that this could be a ploy to extend his stay in power, possibly, and that the election tribunal may have to pause if at all there is a war. Do you think the statement she's making is true? Because it's a very sensitive statement to make at this time. Is there any source of logicality to the statement that she made? She is a former director of civil society of the All Progressives Congress.
The war between ECOWAS and Niger Republic, even if it is declared, cannot entrench Tinubu staying in power beyond the constitutional requirement of this nation. It cannot. Remember the it's not between Nigeria and Niger. This war is between ECOWAS, which is about 15 countries of West Africa, and Niger Republic. So internally it cannot interfere with the workings of Nigeria as expected. So I'm not going to buy into that, because we have a constitution, that guide Nigeria's political system, and that's not the ECOWAS political system. It's also like when you're saying that, or maybe all other countries of ECOWAS will now begin to extend their stay because they are prosecuting a war in Niger. So we have our internal workings. Remember last time, he has to send a letter to the National Assembly, the Senate, to ask for permission to prepare Nigeria troops for Niger Republic if the coup plotters do not step down. And the letter was turned down. So that's to tell you that most of the things that will even be happening has to go through the appropriation through the National Assembly in Nigeria before anything can be done. So if there is war in Niger and he's in power or is trying to use that to perpetuate his state beyond the requirement, it will not work because we have our own workings, internal workings that is devoid of ECOWAS constitution. That is not part of ECOWAS constitution. So I think isolation is not going to work.
Development currently ongoing with the statement that she's making, because I need us to understand this statement she's made. This is not the first time I've been hearing it. This statement has been out there that this could be one ploy or one reason whereby once you declare a war, then a state of emergency may be declared and he would have to remain until the coup or the war situation has been resolved. And so I want to understand what the logicality is about that. That is, how sensible can that particular statement be? Recall that this woman, Hajia Najatu Mohammed, was a former civil society member, a director rather, of the APC, and she's saying that there is a political strategy on this particular declaration by the president. But a couple of other international analysts who have been following through with what is ongoing with Niger have actually said that what Nigeria is doing is the right cause. The reason why I'm making that statement is that I was speaking with barrister Inibehe Efyong earlier, because in a statement he made recently where he talked about the fact that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu does not actually have that constitutional authority to deploy a single member of the Nigerian Armed Forces. Mr. Elvis, I want you to hold on that because I now have Barrister Inibehe Efyong on the telephone. Barrister, welcome to the World News once again. We lost you there.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Apologies for the inconvenience. So you made you made this statement, on a particular online newspaper where you said that the president does not have the constitutional authority to deploy a single member of the Nigerian Armed Forces as part of the proposed Economic Community of West African States, which is the standby force to invade Niger. And you explained that it's not only when a state of war between Nigeria and another country is declared that parliamentary approval is required. You said that parliamentary approval is also required for all combat duties and missions by the nation's armed forces abroad. I need you to broaden, help us explain this better. I need to understand it.
Well, the position I've expressed is that because the matter has been brought before the Senate,
okay,
in terms of the correspondence seeking the approval of the Senate for Nigeria to implement the resolution of ECOWAS. And part of that resolution was that military option would be used. And then the Senate had passed a resolution supporting all the proposals by ECOWAS except the deployment of armed forces, the deployment of the military. It therefore implies the law that the Senate has already taken a position on the matter.
Okay.
So that is why I have argued that based on the constitutional provision section 5 sub 2, that Nigeria cannot be involved in any military combat in Niger. That is the position. And then that if Mr. Tinubu is determined or is convinced that that Nigeria's participation in the ECOWAS standby force is necessary, he has to go back to the Senate to seek approvals. Whereas that today, if Nigeria is to take part in any such deployment, it's going to be unconstitutional because by the law, by the constitution, no member of the armed forces can be deployed on combat duty outside Nigeria without the approval of the Senate.
Okay, what about now that there is a standby force, at the Niger border that as the conclusion was declared, was it not earlier yesterday by the Economic Community of West African States? President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is actually the chairman of ECOWAS, and that agreement has been made. would you say that he is doing the wrong thing by having to make sure that democracy is deployed back in Niger, despite the fact that the Nigerians are not interested in wanting to go back to it?
I don't know whether they want to restore democracy. Maybe they want to restore the deposed civilian president. Because when you say democracy, I think that is an abuse of language.
Okay.
Nigeria itself is not really a democratic country. How many countries in Africa or West Africa have true democracy? Right? How many? So I don't think the democratic argument appeals to me. It doesn't appeal to me.
Okay.
If the people of Niger support the coup, the best way out of it is diplomatic solution, is diplomatic engagement.
But
it's not by deployment of force.
The Nigerians have actually cut ties with Nigeria, including ECOWAS. They have declined to have any form of dialogue or negotiation with Nigerians and the Economic Community of West African states. They have already initiated a new system of government where they have 21 members in that parliament. They have a new prime minister. In fact, he did a statewide broadcast yesterday. So they have literally said that they don't want to have anything to do with ECOWAS, including Nigeria. They're ready to stay with the sanctions imposed on them. And you have countries like Sudan, you have Guinea-Bissau, you also have Mali, who went through the same procedure of coup, and the ECOWAS community did nothing at the time. So why shouldn't ECOWAS respect the rules of engagement or the decisions of those in Niger? What exactly is the difference this time around?
Let me even say that Nigeria's leadership or chairmanship of the ECOWAS does not change anything. As I said in the statement I made last night,
okay,
it does not alter anything. Whatever treaty Nigeria is a signatory to, whatever international organization Nigeria is a member of, it is subject to the provision of our constitution. Now, it doesn't matter. There is whatever we call ECOWAS standby force. Insofar as members of our armed forces will participate in it, the Senate has to give approval. Now, regarding the argument that, Niger has severed relationship with Nigeria, well, that is at the diplomatic level. So my position is that military option should not be on the table. And the reason why they are not interested in talking is that ECOWAS has already pointed a gun at them. Right? When you have said you are going to invade a country, you go to war, and then you want to go and talk, you should take that option off the table first. I don't think the basis for negotiation really exists. Since, that will be what is called a gunboat diplomacy. Diplomacy at gunpoint. I'm not sure the Nigerians are interested in that. Let the matter be addressed diplomatically. And this is also West African leaders or rulers allowing themselves to be puppets of France. This is a French-driven, French in particular, driven intervention. And this is based on the economic interest, because Niger contributes between 15 to 20% of what uranium. They supply about a large percentage of the uranium requirement to Europe, including France. So this is about them using Africans to fight fellow Africans to protect their economic interests.
All right. Barrister, so there is the former director of civil society of the All Progressives Congress, because I was having that conversation, when we lost the connection with you with Ms. Any rerun election. And this statement was also made via an online newspaper, where she said that he is trying to use the crisis in Niger by calling for war as a political tactic. And she said, why was the president in a hurry to declare war in Niger? This is her statement, that Tinubu is aware that he is not eligible to contest. The tribunal judges also know this. APC as a political party also knows this. Do you align with her her reasoning? Do you align with her reasoning concerning the current situation with Niger and the president's initial declaration of invading Niger after 7 days?
That is her opinion. She's entitled to express it. What I know is that I don't see how the military intervention in Niger is in Nigeria's strategic interest. I don't see how this will benefit our country.
Okay. So
there is some merit to the argument that Tinubu might just want to use this for political leverage, maybe to distract us from his the electoral challenge. She
said Tinubu may decide to use the war to prolong his stay in power, if at all there is a war.
No, that is not possible. That is not possible.
Okay. Can you help us explain how that is not possible? Because this insinuation
that is not going to happen. We are not going to have a state of emergency.
Okay.
We are not going to have. Nigeria is not in a state of war with Niger.
Okay.
So there will be no basis to disrupt the litigation, the electoral litigation that is ongoing. I can tell you that is not going to happen.
All right, I needed to clear that out because just like a couple of persons have been sharing that sentiment that the situation with Niger is a deliberate tactic on his part, so that whatever it is the election tribunal judges have decided may be stored to keep him there for as long as possible. Barrister Ijeoma Egwuatu, thank you so much for giving us your time on the World News at 12 and explaining actually most of those legal complications. Thank you so much.
My pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Mr. Elvis, I'll come back to you. Before
I'm with you.
Yes, before I continued with Barrister Ijeoma Egwuatu, I apologize that I needed to speak with him and be done with him because he has a couple of clients to attend to in the office. So earlier, when I started off the news, I started off with the fact that Nigerians are anticipating the eventual declaration of the judges at the tribunal, and that they cannot wait for the judges to give their ruling on who actually, won the February 25 presidential elections. Now, amongst the major political parties as announced by INEC, which is the APC and the PDP and the Labour Party, apparently Tinubu got about 25% in, 34 states, or 30 states thereabouts. He got 25% in 30 states, while the and which are more than the 24 states that are constitutionally required. So, in order for you to be declared a president of the federation in an election, you need about 24 states, constitutionally required 24 states. You need to have won 25% in 24 states. It happens to be that Tinubu did get 30 states, 25% in 30 states, but did not get 25% in Abuja. The same thing goes as well for the PDP, right? And so from the INEC records, only the Labour Party candidate who came third met that requirement. Now, Tinubu and Atiku, of course, like I said earlier, did not. But INEC, in its own wisdom, did not consider that as enough reason to deny Tinubu the victory, having scored the highest number of votes cast in the election and having scored 25% in more than 24 states of the federation. Do you think that this will actually tilt? This could be the legal reasoning that INEC tendered at the election petition tribunal, even in its final summary, and that there is a strong case for the APC, which convinces the judges that Tinubu actually won the presidential elections?
I don't think so, because the Abuja matter is a very big contention.
Yes.
Some people are saying and Abuja, and there is that clause there that the lawyers are trying to interpret Abuja and Abuja or whatever, the 25%. So I think that's where the Supreme Court judgment is. The tribunal judgment is actually going to anchor on. And I know too well that whichever way it goes, it may not end at this tribunal. Supreme Court may have to do a final interpretation on the status of Abuja regarding our electoral system, whether the 25% is actually something that should be considered or not considered. I know that interpretation will still go to Supreme Court.
Okay.
But it's me. I am happy that both the Labour Party and PDP are pushing their case even now, because we have to clear some of these lacuna, some of this ambiguity that we don't know about that has, persisting over the years. We have to use this opportunity to clear them, so that subsequently in Nigeria election, we will not have some of these landmines that politicians are, planting everywhere for people to step on and use them, against them. So let the court clear them, and we'll now begin to make reference to it whenever it falls in that manner. Remember an issue there.
You know that a couple of critics, all right? A couple of critics have said that the Labour Party is not being smart because, according to how INEC had reeled out the results, the APC came first, right? PDP came second, and the Labour Party came third. That the Labour Party is meant to contend against the APC and the PDP. Rather, there should be no brotherly or bromance between the Labour Party and the PDP, because if a rerun should actually be called for, or if at all there needs to be a you did not come third, they had to prove that it won more than the PDP. Don't you think that's also another legal stretch if we want to look at things objectively based on what INEC declared on February 25?
Yeah, that's the area I'm actually looking at. The Labour Party and PDP should hammer on whether the President Ahmed Bola Tinubu is qualified to even contest for this election
No,
because of
no,
some of the factions
no,
we have.
you don't get what I'm saying. I am saying that the PDP itself is a major contender for the Labour Party. So if the Labour Party is the only party that scored 25%, in the FCT, they are the only party that scored 25%. And if at all the APC is disqualified, if at all we get that particular judgment from the tribunal, how will the Labour Party contend with the PDP? Because that's also, they have to contend with the PDP that they won. You know that PDP was second, the Labour Party was third. So how do they convince the election petition tribunal against the PDP? Because that is also another issue entirely, if at all they succeed with the APC.
And they have to they be the Abuja matter that is on ground. That's the case. That's the major case Labour Party will have against PDP because PDP did not win Abuja. So if APC is thrown out of it, it will now be between PDP and Labour Party. But Labour Party still has a ground that PDP did not win Abuja, even though it has the higher vote. And Labour Party. So if Abuja is considered, it must be a win for whichever political party to rule that is going to rule Nigeria. It means it will not go the way of Labour Party. So Labour Party still have a ground to contest whatever PDP in whatever court, because as the result INEC declare, PDP did not have the required 25% in the Federal Capital Territory.
Okay, Mr. Elvis, finally, before I let you go, right, the INEC chairman, while he was defending why INEC declared the APC and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the duly constitutional winner of the presidential elections on February 25, they stated that Tinubu and the APC garnered the highest votes amongst all the candidates, and that he also scored over 25% of the votes in 30 states. Now, constitutionally, what is required is for whoever is leading to get 25% in 24 states. But Tinubu got 25% in 30 states, only that he did not get 25% in Abuja. Now, what I'm saying now is that if at all the judges at the election petition tribunal needs to look at, if the fact that the APC did not win 25% in Abuja, will that derail the authenticity of their win at the election petition tribunal if a judgment is meant to come? And secondly, there have been speculations about some influencing taking place and all whatnot. Could this be a ground in INEC's defense for the election petition tribunal to authenticate the win of Tinubu? Could this be a strong ground to authenticate his win?
25% in 24 states is the requirement.
Yes.
If you win 25% in 24 states, you are good as you have won the election in respect the spread. Yes. If you look at it, Obi has come up with Labour Party has come up with so many other states they said they win that INEC had infraction in declaring the result. So if those results are added, Obi may also begin to have more states he has won. But Abuja's contention already is won by Labour among the other parties that have won the election that has higher vote than Labour Party. So if Abuja must be considered, it is only Labour Party that is standing out that has that unanimous lead among the other two political parties. So Abuja is the contention one that Obi will use to whichever both APC and PDP. If Abuja is considered as a must win for any of the party to win the presidency of Nigeria, Obi has that, Labour Party has that one in their kitty, in their own favor. So any other party that does not have that one will be, if the constitution says it should be shifted that, it will be shifted that.
All right.
For Labour Party, and I'm not even seeing a rerun if Abuja is considered. If Abuja is considered, there will be no rerun. Because the other two parties that are leading Labour Party did not win Abuja. So if Abuja is a factor and the constitution says it must be won by whichever political party that is going to lead this nation, I'm not seeing any rerun. That means it will just be a case of third being declared first.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Elvis Alimehele, for your contribution on the World News at 12 right here on VOP 90.3 FM. Thank you, actually, for your time.
Thank you, Esther.
And finally, the Nigerian army has distanced itself from reports that it partnered with ex-Niger Delta militant leader Mujahid Asari Dokubo or his security outfit in some military operations. The Nigerian army has also distanced itself from reports that it partnered with ex-Niger Delta militant or his security outfit. He recalled that Dokubo had in an interview on a podcast hosted by Seun Okinbaloye claimed he had a military company engaged by the government to work alongside the military in some states of the Federation. Now, speaking with journalists, the Director, Army Public Relations, Brigadier General Ijeoma Egwuatu, said the Army had never conducted an operation in collaboration with Asari Dokubo's men. Now, in order for us to wrap up the world news at 12, here again are the top stories. You actually heard that the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, concerning Presidential Election Tribunal, anxiety as Nigerians await Judgment Day. And President Tinubu knows he is not eligible to contest, may overrule tribunal judgment with Niger war, Najatu discloses. Inibehe Efyong also discloses that Tinubu lacks the constitutional authority to deploy any Nigerian army to Niger. And Nigerian army speaks on partnering Asari Dokubo's security outfit. That's a wrap on the world news at 12 right here in Voice of the People 90.3 FM. My name is Esther Nwachukwu, and my analysts this afternoon were Barrister Inibehe Efyong and Elvis Elimehele. Good afternoon and thank you for being part of the world news. Up next is Martyrs with Ikami Jude.